So to kick things off, my name is Chris Nesbitt-Smith. I'm based in London and currently work with some kind of well-known brands like LearnCates, Control Plane, eSynergy, and various bits of UK government. I'm also a kind of tinkerer of kind of various bits of open source stuff. I've been using or abusing Kubernetes in production for citizen-facing services since it was 0.4. So believe me when I say it's been a journey. We should have some time, as others have, for some questions or heckles at the end. If not, come find me. I'll probably be the only one in pink trousers. So the history of pets versus cattle terminology is muddy at best, but most that link it to a presentation made by Bill Baker from Microsoft in 2006 around scaling the SQL server. So way back in the before times, we called ourselves sysadmins, and we treated our servers like pets. So, for example, Bob, well, the mail server Bob, when Bob goes down, it's all hands to the pumps, and CEO can't get his email. It's the end of the world. We do some incantations, make some sacrifices to an altar, and resuscitate Bob, bringing him back from the dead. Crisis averted, cue the applause and accolades from our valiant sysadmins who stayed up late into the night. In the new world, however, servers are numbered or maybe given UIDs or GUIDs like cattle in a herd. So, for example, you have maybe, say, Web 01 to Web 100. When one server goes down, it's taken out the back, shot, and replaced on the line. But why am I telling you a rather morbid story? Well, Kubernetes deals with all of that kind of tyranny and boredom, right? It saves us from that. Well, and you're right, it does to a large degree, and all your computers are called nodes, or they used to be minions, abstracted and given arbitrary names. Auto-scaling groups and such will automatically detect the sick in your flock, take them out, and bring a replacement in, all while seamlessly replacing your workload on that failed node. And Kubernetes takes that a step further, so your workloads also have unique names. Like the physical servers, your workload failures can be detected and also replaced almost seamlessly. So, where's the pet? Well, what's the first thing you do with a brand new Kubernetes cluster? I'll give you a clue. It's not deploying your application or anything that your business cares about. So, something like that look familiar? So yeah, we had loads of things we had to do just to make our cluster able to start running our workloads. And it's worth noting that with a trend towards more and more features being kind of out of tree, that is to say that they are optional add-ons and don't ship with the core Kubernetes. So an example of this might be things like flex volumes, policy, all the Kubernetes SIG projects, and that many of those find it essential, are only exacerbating this issue. So that might work for when you've got a single cluster. But what about when you've got dev, integration, staging, and QA that your app needs to run on? Or worse, when you need separation between your teams or products. So maybe you've automated that with some Bash, Ansible, Terraform, or the last demo. Whatever you like, well, cool, good on you. However, you'll find it won't be long before there's an updated version of perhaps something patching a vulnerability that you care about, and you may be stuck trying to then test that every single app across your estate. So, this is what we're in the new world calling day two operations. We used to call it BAU or business as usual, but it's where reality catches up with our at least idealistic good intentions. And you'll quickly find that your clusters are running various versions. So given the rate of change in the community, it's unrealistic and dangerous to run latest everywhere, certainly confidently without breaking production, and then disrupting your operational teams. So permutations of seemingly common tool choices. So some teams might use Kong, others might use Nginx, another Apache, for Ingress, obviously, all for plenty good reasons, I'm sure. However, seemingly infinite possibilities across the estate will emerge. Sad times, right? Well, congratulations, you're now the proud owner of a pet shop. Or if you've managed to automate the creation, you can call it a pet factory if you like, but it's a headache. So what? Well, how does that hurt, you might ask? Well, maybe you like pets. Well, presuming, of course, you're in cloud, your world could roughly be summarized into some tiers. So, apps, well, these are the things that your boardroom might know about, and they can properly name them. So think like your public website, your shopping cart system, customer service apps, online chat interfaces, email system, and so on. So these are implicitly kind of providing some value in of themselves to your end customers. And then there's infrastructure. So with cloud, this is all a commodity, thankfully. The days where anyone in our business caring about the challenges of physically racking up hardware, not overloading the weight of the cabinet, and taking beautiful pride in how you've managed to route those cables have hopefully all passed. And you're now just consuming infrastructure. Hopefully you've codified this, but even if you're into ClickOps, making sure it's running is not your problem. No one in your business, hopefully, is concerned with hardware failures, patching routers every time there's a vulnerability there, testing the UPS and the generators regularly, and upgrading the HVAC when you add more kit. You're a armor, as my 16-year-old would say, and then curse me for repeating. But your interactions with any of this are ultimately a few clicks or lines of code, and some info is then available to you with an SLA attached to it. If only the story ended there, though. Sandwiched between these is that grey layer of all the operational enablers. It's where your DevOps or SRE or whatever you want to call them now team. So think log aggregation, certificate issuers, security policy, monitoring, service mesh, Christ, and others. These are things you do because of all of the reasons ranging from risk mitigation to emotion and technically unqualified or just without foresight of what was around the corner in 6 months. Let's just make the leap and assume for a minute that you are more technically competent than your Goliath multi-billion-dollar cloud vendor. And you've completely negated many of the benefits of going to cloud in the first place by ripping up that shared responsibility model. All of this, whilst technically fascinating for people like me to stand and stroke my beard at, this is delivering absolutely zero business value, unless, of course, your business is building or training on those products. And who wants to get into that business? And that's not all. Recruitment. So you might think you want a DevOps, right? Oh, no, wait, DevOps with Kubernetes experience, so maybe a CKA. Oh, yeah, well, it's on AWS, and we use Linkerd in some places, and Istio, no, not the current version, or even the same version everywhere, a mix of pod security policy, Caverno, OPA, for all of our policy needs, and Terraform, Helm, Jenkins, GitHub Actions, all going on, all in a monorepo, apart from the stuff that isn't. Well, we're well outside of the remit of commodity skills, and we're back to hunting unicorns. Sure, you might find some candidates that you'll hire. Well, now you've got one hell of an onboarding issue. So before they can do anything useful and help move your business forwards, then faster than it did without them. And if you've hired some smart people, well, lo and behold, they'll come with their own experience and their own opinions of what worked for them before. So your landscape gets bigger and bigger and more complex and diverse. So I did some Googling. This is what the CNCF landscape looked like way back in 2017. Choices, right? Choices and logos as far as the eye can see. Have you seen it recently? So this has got a bit out of hand. I'd say someone ought to have a word, but to be honest, often I suspect that will probably just make things worse by adding yet more things. And don't get me started on operators. I mean, it's a nice idea, but fundamentally will betray any of the ideals of immutability with crazy levels of abstraction. And you've seen the crazy mutating admission controllers. I mean, if you're really mad, you can nest these things with operators that create CRDs for operators that are all mutated. And heaven forbid someone bumps the version of anything, though. All no doubt held together with sticky tape, chewing gum, glue, pipe cleaners, thoughts and prayers, and Helm. A string-based templating engine where any community module has to eventually expose every parameter and every object abstracted by a glorified string replace. So now I've got to have in my head all of the complexities of a Linux or Windows host, how the container runtime works, the software-defined networking, the storage, the hypervisor, before the container, the scheduler, the controllers, the auth, and the policy, and the mutating policy in the cluster, before I then have to worry about someone in this nested Helm mess of hell has mapped the replica count of one of the deployments to a string called DB replica count, and how that's now changed in a new version of a data dependency, not following Semver, to database replica count. So instead of having my expected 3, I've got 1. When I could have just written a YAML patch for the replica count in the deployment object of the database resource using a stable API versioning with schema validation all for free. The kids doing Kubernetes just don't seem to have learned from the past. Don't get me wrong. I love the open source community with all of my heart. It's so important. And it's simply not possible to do anything without it. Not sorry. This it's a sidebar. Every talk at the minute still event has contractually required by the organisers to reference log4j. This is my slide. Deal with it. It's not relevant. At some point it can come out. Everything, literally everything that exists around us depends upon open source. And the community is brilliant at building some truly remarkable, very high quality things. However, we must accept that the open source community is awful at packaging these things up in a way for consumption, introducing needless abstractions. But enough of that, I'm definitely going to hell now. So, happy place, Chris, happy place. Where was I? Okay, so, yes, through all of this, I can't possibly think of a faster way to go from enthusiastic engineers playing with new exciting tech to deeply unhappy ones trying to fix something at 4 a.m. And before they can do anything meaningful, they've got to go on an orienteering exercise to switch mental context to whatever the intended permutations of things it is that they're looking at. Meanwhile, your business value delivering apps are offline or maybe, at worst, at breach. So, rewind a minute. We didn't want any of these things. How did we get here and what can we do about it? Honestly, bin it all. Kill it with fire. And then learn to love vanilla. Vanilla is great and delicious too. Does anyone remember Kiss? No, not the band. Keep it stupid, simple. Or keep it simple, stupid, whichever one you prefer. And then embrace the shared responsibility model that's on offer and make your cloud vendors do more than just provide compute. Turns out, as it happens, they're not actually all that bad at it. And I'm not daft. I know it's not sexy or exciting. You might find recruitment harder for a bit if you're used to hunting magpies who follow the shiny and don't like boring stuff that just kind of works. So, to answer the question posed from the talk of my title, title of my talk, is it time to put your pet Kubernetes cluster down? Yes. Yes, it is. And in the immortal words of S Club 7, if you can bring it on back immutably from code, all without anyone noticing, which, of course, I'm referring to the original version of those lyrics, then maybe, just maybe, it can earn the right to stay to die another day. I've been Chris Nesbitt-Smith. Thank you so much for joining me today and enduring kind of my self-loathing. Like, subscribe, whatever the kids do on LinkedIn, GitHub, whatever. You can be reasonably rest assured there'll be not much spam or no spam and not much content at all. I'm awful at self-promotion, especially on social media. CNS.me just is a shorthand for finding my LinkedIn. And talks.cnsme contains this and other talks, and they're all open source.